All right, everyone. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm sure there will be others who are going to trickle in to the conversation today, but it is great to have everybody. My name is John Jakubik, one of the account executives here at Opkalla, and I am joined by Evan and Mike from Cato today to execute this webinar for you all. And really excited to have this conversation today, to have you guys out, learn a little bit about Opkalla, but more importantly, what Cato has to offer when it comes to their services. I know some of you may be familiar with them. I know others are not. So the conversation as a whole today, I think, is going to bring a lot of value for everyone involved. Okay. Now, objective for the webinar today, I'm going to start things off. I'm going to give a 5-6 minute high-level overview of who Opkalla is, how we started, what we're doing today, why we operate in the way that we do. Okay, then I'm going to kick it over to the guys at Cato. They're going to run the show from there for the next 50 or so minutes. And then at the end, they're going to kick it back to me. We're going to talk about scheduling follow-up meetings and or some other things at the end is there as well. Before we exit today. But that'll be the objective, that'll be the goal. And again, really excited to have you all here with us today. So Evan, if you could, please go to the first slide here, sir.
All right, gotcha.
Ready? Perfect. So again, John Jakubik, one of the account executives here at Opkalla. I'm going to talk a little bit about who Opkalla is, how we operate, things like such. And when we do these high-level introductions, we always want to have a starting point for the conversation. And that starts with the industry challenges that we're seeing today from our side of the table, from Opkalla's side of things, right? And there's multiple challenges that you are all facing, and I know I'm probably preaching to the choir when stating some of these, but I think it's important to note that what we're seeing on our side of the table as well, right? So some of those obstacles that we are facing today, right? Number one, operating in a lean IT environment. Maybe you're the only person within your entire organization running the show on the IT side of things. Or maybe you have a handful of others who are helping you along, right? You're wearing multiple hats. You got a lot going on. These environments are tough to operate in, right? Number two, constant vendor and tech evals, right? Seemingly every single day, there's a new vendor out there. There's a new solution out there. Where do you go? Where do you turn when it comes to understanding these old and new technologies alike? How do you know what conversations to have, who to pursue, what do you need? There's a lot going on in the space right now, right? Number three, bias agendas. Of course, our different partners, our different solutions that we represent, it's their job to say they're the best thing since sliced bread. Accordingly so, they absolutely should, and they should absolutely believe that, right? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of solutions out there, a lot of providers out there. So again, how do you navigate those agendas? How do you navigate those pitches? And how do you move forward accordingly when it comes to that side of things, right? And then lastly, I think we're all feeling this right now, not enough time. Again, whether you're operating those lean IT environments, you got to do evals, you're talking to different people, there's not enough time in the day to tackle all of this stuff on your own, right? And that's just some of the commonalities when it comes to challenges that we're seeing today. But again, I wanted to start off the conversation by identifying some of those that we are seeing from Opkalla's side of things in today's industry. Okay, Evan, if you will, next slide, please, sir.
All right.
Awesome. Now, I really want to hit home on this slide when it comes to the why behind Opkalla. Okay, and I want to iterate very much so that this slide isn't to talk down upon or talk badly about the consultants, the MSPs, or the VARs of the world. It's more so just very much here to highlight where Opkalla can fit in, how we fit multiple buckets when it comes to these counterparts, right, and how we fit into the equation when it comes to helping you find the best solutions for your environments, right? And I'm going to kind of explain where we identify some of these people in the space, right? Consultants come in and out, right? They're there to do a job, get out the next day. Fantastic. There's always going to be a place and time for that. Again, not talking badly about them. That's how we choose to see consultants in the space, right? MSPs, again, not necessarily agnostic when it comes to their environments. You have to fit within the parameters of how they operate, right? So that's how we're identifying that there. And then VAR, we typically see them come in when there's an opportunity or sale to be had. and out the next day. Again, all good. But that's how we're choosing to identify them there with that list. Okay. Now let's talk about these 4 labels that we have here. Broad technical expertise when it comes to OppCalla. Okay. We have over 300 plus partners like Cato in our portfolio, right? So when it comes to security, we can help you out there. When it comes to connectivity, UC, CC, data center, you name it, we have 300 plus partners in our portfolio to not just be able to help with one thing, but a vast amount of things at the same time. Okay. Number 2, vendor agnostic. We have 300 plus partners in our portfolio because then we can come to the table and not just bring one provider to the table with a conversation, but multiple when it comes to finding the best solution for your needs, right? It doesn't matter who, you guys ultimately want to go with or what's the best fit for you. That's fantastic. That's where we want to come from by providing different people to the table or bringing different people to the table to have those conversations with you. Okay. Number 3, ongoing engagement. We don't just want to sell you the solution and then get out, right? We want to be there from the beginning all the way to the end of that process. And then afterwards, so hopefully we have a client for life in you, not just with that one particular solution, right? And then lastly, collaborative. This is the one that I very much want to hit home on here, is that we are here to work alongside your IT teams and decision makers. We're there to sit on the same side of the table as you, not across the table from you. We're there to negotiate on your behalf. We're there to schedule meetings. We're there to bring trusted advice as a trusted advisor for your organization. So again, we are working alongside of you, not on the other side of the table as you, with that collaborative effort. Okay. Next slide, please. Awesome. Now, partnering with OppCalla, or how, is how we choose to describe this. You can see our 5-step process here, talking about our methodology, right? And I'm not going to hit too much into detail when it comes to this process here, but you can see in the box when it comes to these 4 bullet points that we have. By executing on this process and every single opportunity that we have, here's what we can do for our clients, right? Saving up to 21% on average when it comes to these annual contracts that we're helping them out with, okay? Evaluations completed, we actually just eclipsed 2,800 plus evals since our 2019 inception. Now, that doesn't mean every time we perform an evaluation, right, that you guys as a client ultimately go with the solution that we have brought to the table. But what it means is that we've seen a lot, we've done a lot. So if you have a problem or a solution you're trying to look at, chances are we've been there, we've done that, we can help you from that holistic approach to find the best solution for you, okay? 20 plus years of experience as consultants on staff and over 250 plus happy clients in our portfolio and growing as we move into year 4 here at OppCalla, okay? And then lastly, the last slide for me there, brother, where we can engage. And again, I'm not going to go into detail here, but just wanted to throw this up when it comes to our 4 areas of business at OppCalla. I mentioned those 300 plus partners. That's where these engagements come into play when it comes to your Microsoft, mobility, your contact center, etc. If you have a need, chances are we can very much help you out with that when it comes to our services here with us at OppCalla. All right. Evan, next slide, sir. And I believe, there we go, cybersecurity, which is going to lead into our conversation with Cato today and their offerings. So with that, I want to hand it off to the Cato guys. Evan, Michael, the floor is all yours. Appreciate you guys, and have at it, go.
Thanks, Sean. So thank you guys for attending. It's great to be here presenting to you today. Just a little bit of background on myself. So I've been working in the SASE and cybersecurity space for a while. Currently, I'm a director of product marketing at Cato, but in my past, I was, an infrastructure engineer, sales engineer, so fairly technical. And then some more background just on who Cato is. Right, so we were founded by security leaders and innovators, Shlomo Kramer. So if you may have heard of Shlomo, he founded Check Point and essentially created the next generation firewall market. Imperva, and then Ger Schatz, also founder of Imperva and Capsula. So currently we're pre-IPO startup mode, but we have over 600 employees, a $532 million recent investment in us at a $2.5 billion valuation. And currently we're providing services to 1,300 customers globally with our 75 plus points of presence. And so a couple of our selected customers, I won't spend too much time talking about this, but what I really want to, get across here is that, we cover a wide variety of customers, both in, size, complexity, vertical. So there's really, a strong fit for almost any company as far as adopting Cato for their SASE needs, whether it's around, replacing MPLS with high performance connectivity and optimization, or, increasing security through ZTNA and advanced security capabilities. Cato has, the full gamut covered for really, any customer that's looking to move that route. Now, what does Cato do? So this is, kind of an architecture slide, and pardon it gets a little busy. There's supposed to be some build out, but for the sake of time, I cut it down. So essentially at, any of our over 75 POPs globally, we can deliver full networking and security capabilities, right? So all of our POPs are interconnected by, multiple tier 1 providers to form our global private backbone. And this allows us to deliver, high performance capabilities, but also security, right? So built into the product is, firewall as a service, secure web gateway, IPS, next generation anti-malware, ZTNA, CASB, and DLP. So all of these are delivered at every POP, and we see a huge performance improvement in predictability and reliability for most customers over the backbone with our networking optimization. And not to forget, Cato has our on-premise equipment. It's called the Cato Socket, and this is a very low cost OpEx way to get SD-WAN, and our SD-WAN can support up to 3 active connections and up to 3 gigabits per second throughput through our security cloud. So let's talk a little bit about how we got into SASE and kind of the evolution of Zero Trust from the legacy days until now. So when I was growing up, there were a couple simple rules that were pretty straightforward, and they made a lot of sense, right? It was, don't talk to people on the internet. That makes sense. And don't get into cars with strangers, which is, I think, one that probably many of us grew up with. I'll say that, fast forwarding to now, where we literally use the internet and summon strangers for the only reason of getting into their cars and asking them to take us somewhere. It's definitely a paradigm shift in the ways that we think about using the internet and interacting with people, and also, our personal security. So if you think about that in the context of, the networking and information security world, we really had kind of the same thing back then, right? We had castle and moat security. It was, very predictable. We knew what our users were connecting to. They were typically, our private resources in our data center. And we connected these, with MPLS to ensure performance. But then as time went on, we had to add, more and more things into this. So we ended up with a complicated security stack of disparate products that really didn't lend itself to scaling well. Now, if you fast forward to today, users have become like super mobile, right? So I can tell you that I've been full-time remote for about 7 years now. And I work from, home most of the time, but I travel quite a bit also. So I'm really working for everywhere. And then on top of that, applications have moved outside of our data centers. And now our users are consuming SaaS. They're consuming our private apps from, platform and infrastructure as a service. So we really need to evolve away from this castle and moat, giant security stack investment to something that's more scalable and agile. So now we're delivering converged security and networking everywhere with SASE, global performance without MPLS. And really the key here is simple deployment and management. And that may not, sound necessarily that important depending on, how technical and capable your organization is. But it does lend itself to creating, a better security posture and better outcome. And it's super scalable and agile, right? You consume it as a service, just like AWS has capacity for you. So does SASE. And you also enjoy, the benefits of the performance over, what was available before. So how did we get to now? So if you think about this within the context of, remote access and how that evolved, we started with traditional access, right? So we have someone who's an employee of a company and we trust them. Obviously, we hired them. So she needs to access certain resources. With traditional VPN access, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with, the user is brought on board through the VPN concentrator and they can access, anything on the network. They're essentially living on the network. So then Zero Trust emerged. And with Zero Trust, we decided that maybe users don't need to be able to access everything because we don't always know what they're going to do, or maybe their credentials get compromised and it's not really the user. So we're minimizing risk by limiting them just to the resources that they need. So in this case, we have a security guard who's, escorting this lady to the ERP system only, and she's not allowed to go anywhere else. Now, even further closer to today, if you think about how Zero Trust has evolved, we've gone from the basic limited access model to having some more advanced Zero Trust access, or as some call it Zero Trust 2.0. And what this is really about is not only controlling where the user can go, but also providing active inspection for content, right? So in this case, right, we can check in her bag with an X-ray machine, see she's bringing in something bad. Once she leaves, we can see if she's bringing anything classified or potentially damaging or sensitive out of the organization or building. But if you see this little car, you also have to take into account the transition to cloud, right? So in this case, just due to capacity or performance or whatever it is, there's a need to split tunnel, right? So she can get in her car and go anywhere else, and we're not applying these capabilities anymore, right? So we still have some glaring security gaps there as far as what we're inspecting and what access we're controlling. Now, if you fast forward all the way to today, and sorry, it gets a little bit busy here, we have all the things that we previously mentioned, but now we're delivering them with convergence and with SASE. So we've converged networking and security capabilities. So now we've gained the ability to apply the same methodology, not just to remote users, but really to locations and anywhere that makes sense to us. So we're doing the same things. We're providing full inspection, but we've also added in geo restrictions, right? Maybe there are certain countries that you have no legitimate reason for any of your users to operate with. Accessing resources in North Korea and Russia are probably some decent examples right now. But then we've also added granular control on top of that, right? So instead of just saying you can or cannot access resources in the cloud, we're going to flip that, and now you can make contextually aware decisions, based on the circumstances. And so in this case, right, maybe you want to block Azure altogether, allow Office 365 altogether, but have some other restrictions in place to minimize, your footprint. So we can block exporting from Salesforce. We can make Box download only. We can block sending attachments in webmail. All those kinds of things lend us to be able to not only provide a more secure working environment for our users, but also enable them to get their jobs done and have a great experience doing so. So if we think about, getting from the legacy days to SASE, we kind of went on this roadmap with SD-WAN. And SASE is definitely more than just SD-WAN plus SSE. So SSE, if you're not familiar, is the security service edge, which Gartner created end of last year. So it's really more than that. And it's about having the right components and convergence and shared context between all of the engines. So a little history on kind of how we got to SASE and SSE is around 2014, SD-WAN started to emerge, and it really offered the promise of moving away from, MPLS or reducing dependency on it and creating, better performance and the ability to leverage multiple last mile transport with intelligence, right? So in this case, we can select, the best way to route our traffic for the best performance, but also with the cost implications in mind, where we might want to send it over, VPN to the public internet rather than over an MPLS connection that costs a lot more. So in this case, we're focusing, purely on performance and cost reduction by leveraging these transports intelligently. And there's, limited or really no focus on security at the time. Then if we fast forward to 2019, Gartner created the SASE space, right? So what they call the Secure Access Service Edge really represented the convergence of security and networking, and it was the evolution from SD-WAN to also include security as a priority, right? So in this case, we're adding known capabilities such as SWG, CASB, Firewall as a Service, CTNA on top of SD-WAN. And there's some key tenets here, really. It should be cloud native, delivered as a service. Global presence matters because you're sending all your traffic there, and simple management with single pass processing. Now, more recently, right, we mentioned the SSE came about at the end of 2021. So Gartner really decoupled ZTNA and cloud security from SD-WAN and network performance. And the tenets remain the same as SASE, right? They should be cloud native. It should be delivered with multiple points of presence. But this subset of SASE really focuses just on the security and not on the networking component. So if you think about it, from a take a step back and think about it from kind of a broad approach, right? Technically, SD-WAN plus SSE forms what Gartner calls SASE, but capability-wise and effectiveness-wise, it's not always able to deliver when you mix those two technologies. So just a little bit on Edge SD-WAN, right? We said we started here in, SD-WAN emerged around 2014. Cato offers Edge SD-WAN, but it's really just as a capability of a broader platform, right? It's not a point product. It's not intended to just, for the most part, be an appliance that you drop in. It's a service that you consume, and we can handle, multiple transports up to 3 active with automatic high availability and, packet loss mitigation and all of that. Then for performance and intelligence, you get full visibility into all your traffic from the Cato Cloud. And application and identity awareness, or you can create the networking policies that make sense. Dynamic path selection, so that's not just across those 3 active last mile links, but once your traffic hits one of our points of presence, it's then routed across our private backbone intelligently for the best route possible for performance. Then QoS prioritization, and hopefully you don't hear my dogs barking. Someone just rang the doorbell, but I'll move on from that. And then end-to-end optimization, right? So you get full control over routing. You can even egress from private dedicated IPs at our POPs. And then management, so zero-touch provisioning. I'll always say take that with a grain of salt, right? Obviously, someone has to touch something somewhere at some point, but it's really about as close as you can get. It's very simple to deploy our sockets. And prime example is we have a large customer that has a very small IT and networking staff deploying 15 sites a week easily. Single pane of glass, also an overused term, but we do truly have one single management application that lets you handle the entire service. Then analytics and BGP are built into the service and can be leveraged by customers as needed. So a little bit of a deeper dive into our architecture is Cato's single pass cloud engine, or SPACE. True single pass processing is really a tenet of SASE and SSE, and because Cato converges networking and security within a single platform, we can really provide single pass across the gamut, not just for a specific security function, but really everywhere. So every one of our data centers runs multiple pieces of bare metal hardware, and all of these are running our software that have multiple spaces. So every space can handle traffic from any customer. So we can take all of this traffic, apply policy in real time, and then in a true single pass, perform networking, security, and access functions. And because of this, it's fully redundant across the board, right? If you think about the POP architecture, every space can handle multiple customers. Every hardware runs multiple spaces, so there's seamless failover if there's an issue with a space or with a piece of hardware or with an entire point of presence, right? We had a data center in the UK, I believe, that had a fire that caused an outage, and all of those users seamlessly failed over to the next nearest location. And this is important because it lends itself to, one, being easier to configure and manage. With that single management console, you really have one place to go and look when you have issues or need to create policies. Shared context leads to better security decisions from the automated engines, as well as more flexible policies, and then less processing latency. Visibility is great too. You get all your networking, last mile monitoring, all of that kind of stuff in one place alongside your security events. So you really don't have to overcomplicate it by going to all these different places to find information. And we did mention that Gartner says that global presence is also a strong factor for SASE and SSE. So Cato has 75 plus points of presence globally that we are building ourselves. We're standing them up in top tier data centers everywhere, and every one of these locations is fully capable of delivering all of our product functions. There's not specific locations that handle things like DLP or things like that. Everyone can handle that. So on the slide, it did mention SSE 360. So Cato differentiates a little bit in the SSE space by applying some of the SASE concepts to SSE. So instead of, connecting to a POP and then egressing over the public internet, being passed between, multiple ISPs for the most economical route to the destination, once you hit Kiddo's POP, you're on our private backbone, and we give you full acceleration and optimization capabilities. Now, you may wonder why that matters. Well, it's very noticeable to end users. So here's a quick video I recorded. That shows really the comparison in transfer speed. So this is just a file downloaded from testfiledownload.com. It's a 1 gig file over the Kiddo backbone with optimization. It took 49 seconds. Through another SSE vendor over the public internet, it took over 2 minutes, and that's a notable increase in performance. And it's one of the reasons that the Kiddo gladly recommends that you pass your VoIP traffic over us for a more consistent experience, where some vendors may have issues there. So quick case study on ransomware. So this is really based on a real world attack. And what we mean here is that, a lot of our customers and prospects, they've had existing security investments in place, but they're disparate point products, and they don't always work effectively to stop threats. So in this case, this company had, all the tools that they thought they needed in place. They had firewall, they had endpoint protection, they had phishing protection, SIM, a couple other things. But initially, it started off with a phishing email sent to a user. So this, got through, but even with their spam prevention and things like that, it got through and it presented the user with a fake credential screen to look for a real. So they were able to log in. And then the bad attacker used Cobalt Strike to deliver malicious payloads. Some parts of this were blocked, but eventually they were able to get the tool in place and use it. Same with Mimikatz, right? Some of their tools blocked it or detected it. But eventually, they got through with persistence. And then over the next, few weeks, they're able to use SMB and RDP to move laterally within the environment. Next, they exfiltrated data to Mega with rclone. And then finally, data was encrypted, right? This is where they detected the attack all the way at the end of the attack stage. And, they say sometimes you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but sometimes you miss 100% of what you do take if you're not making the right, decisions and having shared context between your engines. So the point here is that at almost every step of this process, Kiddo could have stopped this attack. From phishing, we don't do phishing prevention, but we can, block with SWIG once they click on a phishing link. And then all the way across the gamut, we would have blocked, each stage of this attack. So here's the MITRE attack framework. And you can see here, this is where the attack was detected, right? The red kind of shows you what methods were used in this case. And Kiddo, would have stopped each one, right? So we have our SWIG blocking phishing, we have IPS blocking Cobalt Strike, we have anti-malware stopping Mimikatz, our WAN firewall preventing some lateral movement, beyond what should have been allowed. And then we can, block Mega with our next generation firewall. So if you think about it, if you stop, almost any of these parts of the attack, you would have, prevented it altogether. And then, beyond this, right, CASB, DLP, and MDR provide additional value. CASB, you can't always block things outright. So maybe you want to limit your data exposure and prevent uploading to certain things. Or maybe you want to enforce broader security policy context, right? Maybe you want to only allow your users to access things that are HIPAA compliant. You can set those kind of broader policies or based on risk level within CASB. Then API-based CASB, scans offline to kind of monitor activities and remediate oversharing permissions, things like that. So another great way to reduce your exposure. And then DLP gives you the ability to, create policies based on what kinds of data are being used, right? Is it confidential? Is it PII, PCI, that kind of stuff? Maybe you want to control where that could be uploaded or downloaded. And then finally on the MDR note, right? With our MDR service, Kiddo Connect 24/7 on your behalf. And can provide network level containment as well as remediation guidance for any threats that are present on endpoints. So we've all probably heard that attackers have to be right many times, but it's not really the case, right? The attackers have to be right once, and we have to be right many times, but it's not really the case, right? Attackers have to be right many times, and as security professionals, we have many opportunities to stop them. So we should, take advantage and do as much as we can. And it seems I talked fast, so we sped through this presentation. One last reminder, integrating point products doesn't always lead to better outcomes. If you think about, taking things that exist, integrating them together and building them, you might end up with the Lamborghini on the left. But if you set out from the start to build something with a specific purpose in mind, you might end up with the one on the right. And I'll let you decide which one you think is better. I know which one I think is. So then we can either take questions, or I'll hand it back to John and we can take questions at the end. I'll let John decide.
Thanks, Evan. I appreciate you, man. And I know Scott just asked a question here in the Q&A section. Can you see that on your end, Evan, that question that he asked?
Let me open that up. Got it.
And take a look there and see if you may have been the insider, if we can get back to him on that, or what type of answer you have.
No, so I can answer that now. So the answer currently is no. One of the capabilities, Scott, that I had talked a little bit about was the API-based CASB out of band. So that feature is in development for us currently. And once that's complete, though, we would be able to detect that kind of attack.
Perfect. Thank you, Evan. And as questions, I know that's a lot of info to digest for everyone watching. If questions arise after the fact, or things come up as you're exploring more security questions within your environment, of course, you can reach out to us. You can reach out to Cato, and we can most certainly get you guys those answers. So, Evan, if you can go to that next slide here in regards to follow-up for everyone. So, again, everyone attending, really appreciate you guys joining us today and for your time and obviously your attention when it comes to this presentation. We are recording this presentation as well. So as a follow-up for you all, we will email you a copy of this recording. So you guys have that. I know we're definitely going to post it on LinkedIn as well. So please feel free to pass that on to colleagues, people within your organization, etc., who you think might be able to find value in this information as well. And as an action item or a next step, in regards to setting up a meeting with us and Cato to discuss your strategy, if you have further questions, maybe it's something else that OpCalla can provide from a solution standpoint, we would love to hear from you guys. And you can set that stuff up by emailing Bryce Ulrey, one of our managing partners here at OpCalla. And you see his email address right there on the screen. And again, with that recording that we are going to send as a follow-up to you guys, we'll have these next step instructions in there as well. So you can hit up Bryce, get that set up, and we can set up a meeting in regards to Cato and what they have to offer, as well as those other solutions. So with that, that is what we have for you guys today. Again, Mike, Evan, really appreciate you guys coming on and providing this value for everyone in attendance. And with that, we will leave you guys, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. All right, appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, y'all.